Well done. Next up, part 2, 1,000 years of industrial heritage.
Three Mills Island is one of the oldest and largest surviving industrial centres in England. The ebb and flow of the River Lee has powered water wheels and grinding stones here for at least 1,000 years. Its importance as a major trading route was made clear in 1424, when the Lee became the first river in the country to have an Act of Parliament granted to improve its navigability. Back then, Three Mills Island formed part of the nearby Abbey of Stratford Langthorne, and it was at this time when medieval monks laid the foundations on which the house mill stands today. Take a look at the peculiar wooden objects covered with metal on plinths at the end of the exhibition room. These are actually the severed tips of huge 8-foot wooden stakes that were driven into the riverbed between 1380 and 1420 as the foundations of an earlier mill on this site. For much of the Middle Ages, the mills here produced flour, which was sold to bakers in the nearby city of London. Industries that subsequently developed included bone boiling for soap, calico printing, paper making, gunpowder manufacture, silk weaving, tanning, and the manufacture of porcelain, but it was the brewing and distilling industry that built the house mill as part of the Three Mills Distillery Company. The Three Mills Distillery, formed in the 1720s, benefited throughout the 18th century from supply contracts with the Royal Navy for the supply of gin, mill for ship biscuits, and salted pork from the company's piggery, where animals were fed on the byproduct of the distillery. The industrial process would begin at the distillery when boats and barges arrived at Three Mills with sacks of grain from farms in Kent, Essex and upriver in Hertfordshire. These sacks would be lifted to the top of the mill by hoists powered from the tide. From the rafters of the building, grain would then be poured into rooms called grain bins holding up to 180 tons of grain. From there, canvas and wooden chutes fixed into the floor would deliver the grain to the machinery of the smutting and dressing floor, where hallucinogenic funguses were removed. The smutting and dressing floor is upstairs, and from here the grain would descend into hoppers visible above the millstones on this floor, which directs the grain into each pair of millstones. Take a closer look at the tons and stones on this floor. The bedstones at the bottom remain stationary, whereas the runner stones above them would rotate at 120 revolutions per minute. The centrifugal force would throw out the ground product from the sides of the stones, and then, trapped in the tun, it would be swept through gaps in the bottom, through more chutes, and finally bagged up as milled grain downstairs on the mill floor. The operation of 12 huge pairs of millstones would have made this an incredibly noisy place to work, but the greatest danger to the millers was flour dust that would have been perpetually hanging in the air and filling the lungs of those who worked here. Life expectancy for a mill worker was low. Flour dust is also highly explosive, adding further fire risk to an already dangerous work environment.
Come quickly, there's trouble at the old mill.
For your next challenge, take a look around the millstones with the drawings you received earlier. Apart from the millers constantly breathing flour dust here, can you identify who or what else might have a reason to be in distress?